Somebody throw me in the mental institution. Hello everybody, it's me. And there is this trend that's going around on TikTok where people paint their face like a clown while they tell a story about a time that they've been like played, essentially. And I thought, what better thing for me to do? I've been paid to be a professional face painter before, and I've gotten played a lot. So we're gonna put the two together today. So I wasn't actually paid to be a face painter. I was hired by this guy, my very first job. I answered a Craigslist ad that literally just said, looking for blonde woman to play Cinderella, $50 an hour. And I showed up, I called him, he told me to go to their store. I went there, they hired me on the spot. I got paid $50 an hour to either be Cinderella, which I think I have a picture and I'll put it in if I do, and to paint kids' faces. So yeah, I've technically been paid to be a face painter before. So what better way to tell you guys the story of how I got played and was extremely gullible than to do it through face painting and copying TikToks. Our story is gonna begin in May of sometime when I was in college. I don't remember exactly what year it is, and I don't really care to think back and try to remember. We jumped onto Tinder, and I had Tinder from the beginning of my freshman year, but I really wasn't using it seriously. I had never met up with anybody off of Tinder or anything like that. I met this guy on Tinder and we had matched probably April or May. It was beginning of the summer, I think. I'm not really quite sure because him and I had started talking. He had asked for my Snapchat, and I kind of asked him, where are you from? And he said originally he was from Virginia. And I was like, okay, cool, whatever. What are you up in Rhode Island for? Because we had matched when I was in Rhode Island. So I'm assuming he's either at Mass, Connecticut, or Rhode Island because they all border each other. And he wasn't in Rhode Island. He was like, I'm not in Rhode Island. And I was like, okay, right, so where are you? And I went and looked at his location on the app, and it said he was thousands and thousands of miles away. So he's like, oh, I'm in Colorado. And this man was like, oh, I'm in the Air Force. And I was like, okay, you're in the Air Force in Colorado, and you're from Virginia, but we matched in Rhode Island, ? Because my location is 30 miles away, and this man is 3,000 miles away. And he made up some excuse about how he was visiting or whatever, which we later found out is definitely not true. Thinking back, I realized that he definitely was paying for Tinder, and he put his location as Rhode Island for a specific reason, which I will explain. It kind of peters out. We're not really talking very much, and I'm kind of whatever, you know what I mean? I'm not really that interested because you're not even anywhere near me. And he keeps talking to me, keeps trying to hit on me, keeps being really nice, and then months and months go by. And I would say end of June was when him and I actually started to seriously talk a little bit more, because he had asked for my number and had texted me and we were talking. I don't know if he texted me about something that was on my Snapchat or on my Instagram or whatever. And so we actually started talking at that point. And he was so nice, so funny, very charming and charismatic over text. So I didn't really think much of it at the time, because I'm thinking, okay, this man is in Colorado, nothing's gonna happen anyways, whatever, who cares? It's just for fun. And then one day he started to get more serious and was asking me all of these questions about kind of being exclusive with him, kind of trying to suggest that he wasn't dating anybody else, and he kept asking me if I was, and I was like, well, I am, but I'm not gonna tell him that. So I would just kind of dodge the question and be like, oh, I don't know, you're too far away, pretty much. And he would just keep being persistent, keep bringing up how he wanted to be exclusive and he was not seeing anybody else. He ends up adding me on Twitter, and I noticed that this girl was constantly commenting on stuff on his Twitter, and I think it was on his Instagram too at this point. And it was kind of weird, so okay, I don't know who this girl is, he doesn't answer the questions or what she says, he won't answer her comments, he's not liking them or anything. I'm who is this? I'm very nosy, so I asked him, I'm who is this girl? And he's like, oh, she is my ex-girlfriend. So out of curiosity, I pulled a little bit of a Kris Jenner, and I said, this is the case for the FBI. And I put on my little FBI hat and I start looking into this girl. So the first thing I do is I go to her Twitter, and obviously I'm looking through her tweets, and there are a lot of tweets between the two of them, very lovey, very I love you, baby, from not very long ago, probably I think it was a couple months before that. So I'm okay, so this is a recent breakup. And he was like, yeah, she still wants to get back together with me, Like, I'm not into it though. Like, I don't want to be with her. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I don't really care either way. You're in Colorado. I don't really know you very well. Like, you're still kind of like a little bit of a stranger. Like, yeah, I kind of have a crush on him at this point because he's cute and he's like being very flattering. He's always complimenting me. So I'm like, whatever. It's nice having the attention. Okay, I'm going to admit it. So I'm searching this ex-girlfriend and I go on her Facebook and I see that she was from Rhode Island. So I'm like, thinking back, I'm like, okay, so she's from Rhode Island. We matched. Well, he claimed he was visiting Rhode Island, where his ex-girlfriend is from. And we matched like months ago. In my mind, I'm like, okay, was he like visiting her in Rhode Island? Like, that's a little red flaggy. So me being the confrontational person that I am, I confront him and I'm like, okay, what is happening? Where were you in Rhode Island visiting her? And he's like, no, it was just a coincidence. Like, I wasn't in Rhode Island, I was in Massachusetts. Pretty much trying to act like he wasn't here visiting her. And to be honest, I don't even know if he was, because she hadn't been back to Rhode Island in a long time. So I have a feeling that he had set his location on Tinder after he paid for Tinder to Rhode Island to try and see if he could like find her or like match with people she knew out of spite. Like, I don't know. So at that point, I'm like, okay, all right, like, this seems real sus. I don't really care. I'm just gonna take you at your word that like you were supposedly like traveling to Rhode Island a month ago, like, even though there's no indication of it, but okay, whatever you say, bud. Him and I are talking and he keeps pushing being exclusive. So I'm like, okay, whatever. I'm not really seeing anybody else at this point. It's like mid-July. And I know that he was going to be going home to Virginia soon. And his birthday was, I think, in August. So he had kept talking about having me go down to Virginia in August when he came home, because we hadn't actually like met each other at that point. So he had been planning on going back to Virginia for like months and months. Like, this had been something that had been planned. I think it was like his mom's birthday. He had tweeted about going back, and at this point, like, him and I had gotten into like a few fights, especially about his ex-girlfriend, because she was constantly like commenting on his stuff. And I'm like, okay, how are you gonna sit here and tell me how into me you are as your ex-girlfriend is like all over your page and like kind of making it look like you're still together? That's a red flag to me, and like I don't like that. Him and I agreed to be exclusive. He starts tweeting about how excited he is to like go home, and there's another girl that keeps commenting on it. And there's this girl from his hometown. You could tell I like, again, pulled out my little FBI cap and I had stalked her Instagram and her Facebook and stuff like that. He was constantly liking her stuff or whatever. So I'm like, okay, again, case number 2, red flag number 2, like, you are being sus. So I had texted him and he was like pretty much saying that she was a good friend of his. But she would be commenting things like about how excited she was for him to come home. I have a feeling it was more one of those like friend things where like she's his friend, but he has a crush on her. Like, that's really the vibe that I got, because she would comment something and be like, so excited for you to come back. And he'd be like doing hard eyes back or things like that. And at the same time, he's sitting there and be like, no, babe, like, that's just a friend of mine. Like, it's fine. He ends up going home. And then there was a whole night where he didn't answer me the whole night. And I know that he was with this girl. So I'm like, okay, I know for a fact that you were with that girl last night, and now all of a sudden you like can't pick up your phone and you can't answer. And he played it off. He was like, no, not a big deal. I lost my phone all night. I'm like, okay, yeah, and you conveniently found it at like 12 p.m. So him and I get into this full fight because I'm like, okay, this is the biggest, most obvious lie. And he, to the death, is defending this and gaslighting me, being like, you're crazy, you're just making things up, you're making assumptions, that girl's my friend. And I'm like, okay, if it's not that girl, then it's another one. You know what I mean? Like, it's obvious that it's somebody. So this whole time he's like, I'm telling you that I would fly you down to Virginia, like, I can't believe you're doing this to me, just like gaslighting me. Fast forward in time, he comes back to, or goes back to Colorado from being home. And all of a sudden, a new girl starts commenting on his stuff. And mind you, he had like always been really like huge about tagging me and stuff on Twitter. And like we would constantly be talking through Twitter. And his ex-girlfriend is going crazy. This girl was, I think, 4 or 5 years older than me. I was 20. She was like 24, 25. And every single day she would spend all of her time, like I swear just half of her day, subtweeting about me. I don't know her, I've never met her, I don't know anything about her. The only connection that we had was through him. And I guess because him and I were dating and she didn't like that, or like it was obvious that we were talking and she didn't like that, she would constantly target me. So finally I told him, I'm like, you need to tell this girl to cut the shit because I'm getting really sick and tired of it and I'm not putting up with it for much longer. So he claims that he talked to her and she said that she would stop or whatever, and of course she doesn't. This went on for an entire summer. Like every day at least, she would tweet something about me. So I'm like, okay, whatever. This girl's just immature. Like, it's not my problem. It's not really his fault. Like, not much can be done about the situation. I finally am Snapchatting him one day and I get a message from him. And that was so weird. He never would message me on Snapchat. He would always snap me back with like a picture of himself. So I get this message on Snapchat from him and it says, your nose looks really weird or something like stupid like that. It was something like making fun of my nose. And I was like, what? Like literally what the fuck? So I thought he was kidding. I thought it was him. He was just joking around. So like I'm over here taking pictures of like my nostrils from straight up. That's what it was. They said something about my nostrils. Like your nostrils look really big or like something stupid. So I'm like thinking it's him and I'm just joking around. And I'm like, taking pictures of my nostrils on purpose, like from below, just to be an asshole. And they keep being like, stop it. No, seriously, stop. And then the person was like, you'll never be better than his ex because she's so nice and such a great person and you'll never be better than her. And I'm like, what? So that's the moment where I'm like, okay, this is not him. I'm texting him and he hadn't been answering. So I text him again. I'm like, what the hell is going on with your Snapchat? And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I was like, I've been literally Snapchatting you for the past like 10 minutes. And I was like, somebody's saying like, sending me all these weird messages. So he finally texted me back like a few seconds later and he was like, I can't get in. He was like, somebody kicked me out and now I like am having trouble getting back into it. So I'm like, okay, clearly this isn't her. He gets back into his Snapchat and he said that like all the messages were gone. Like everything was gone. Somebody had gone through and like deleted whatever his last threads were. She tweeted something sketchy, kind of saying that she had done it. So I'm like, all right, whatever. In and of itself, like you're 24 years old and you're hacking into your boyfriend's Snapchat, like grow up. If you really wanted to be with him, like you wouldn't be behaving that way. Time goes on again. And August comes around. I think that happened in the beginning of August. So the end of August is coming. And he had kept telling me, I want you to come to Virginia. I want you to come to Virginia. I want you to come to Virginia when I go home again in August. So he keeps telling me this and I'm like, okay, like that's fine, but we have to plan it ahead of time because I have work and like whatever else. And he's like, yeah, okay, no problem. So then him and I get into a fight about it because I'm like, okay, if you're actually gonna do this, you need to do this now, but if not, like stop BSing me and stop telling me that you're gonna bring me there when you're not. And he's like, no, like whatever. We don't really talk about it again. So him and I had gotten into another fight again at this point over this girl because after he had gone home the first time, this girl from his hometown had tweeted out and had said, was saying things that were clearly about him. Like it was like, oh, I love a guy who's close with his mom. And like I said, his mom's birthday had been, I think it was the weekend in July that he came back. So she was like, I love a guy who's close with his mom. And she was like a family friend. Like she knew his parents, like she knew him. So by extension, like she obviously was at his mom's birthday. So I'm like, okay, this is clearly about you. And then she kept tweeting stuff like that. And she would tweet things at him sometimes, but he like really wouldn't answer. I think there was only once or twice that he like actually answered. And they were all like generally friendly things. They weren't romantic things. So it's becoming increasingly obvious that like something must have been going on between the two of them because I'm like, this girl's not just tweeting about you out of nowhere. She's not doing it because she's a crush on you. Like you're obviously goading it on in some way. He's like, no, I'm not doing anything, blah, blah, blah. So we got into this huge fight and we actually ended up breaking up for like 3 or 4 days at that point. And then I think, I'm pretty sure he's the one who reached out to me and then we had started talking again, like right before his birthday. So I got him this huge, nice like amount of stuff for his birthday and I ended up like shipping it out to him because I had already bought it and I'm like, okay, whatever. You know what I mean? I may as well just like give it to him. Again, like this girl keeps coming up. So we kept talking for like a couple more weeks after his birthday and it was definitely like a normal amount of time. I don't really know the exact time frame on this. It's kind of confusing because I'd started school again and yeah, so it was kind of weird. But we had talked for like a couple more weeks and then we ended up again getting into a huge fight over the same girl that was tweeting at him before because she was still doing it and like he was liking all of her pictures and it was very obvious that like there was something going on there. So I'm like, okay, you know what, whatever. And he wanted to end things and I'm like, okay, yeah, I don't really care at this point. We decided to like keep each other on social media though, like on Snapchat and on Instagram. And not even a week later, me being nosy and like wanting to look into his life and wanting to see if I was right, goes and looks, and the same girl that I was worried about had posted a photo of herself with him, making it very clear that they were dating. And the best part is that not even a month later, he flew her out to Colorado. And I had told him like a million times, and I tell everybody, I have a tattoo of a giraffe on my side because giraffes are my favorite animal. And he took her to go feed giraffes, which is the date idea that I told him that I wanted to do. Yes, you heard that right. So like a month later, he messaged me again, and he was pretty much trying to get back together and essentially being like, you were so right, like you're so much better than her, like I don't know what I was thinking. I was just thinking that like it would be easier to be with her because she was in my hometown and like we would be able to see each other more, but like I really want to be with you. And I was like, then he immediately got back together with his psycho ex-girlfriend who hacked his Snapchat immediately after he asked me to get back together, and I said no. Yeah, that's my life for you, just in case you were wondering. And the amount of gaslighting that that man did really had me questioning if I was going insane. Like, somebody throw me in the mental institution because I am going crazy, I am being jealous, and I'm paranoid, and I'm like making stuff up. And I was right the entire time about all of it, every single one of them. And yeah, that's my story. So hopefully you liked it. How's my face painting? Everybody let me know. This makeup does not work very well. This green came out terribly, but it's fine. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, comment down below, tell me your story, tell me if you've been played worse, I don't know, tell me anything that you want really. And yeah. Oh, you can follow my Instagram, it's @ChloeWigs, and my Twitter is @ChloeMitChange, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye.